In today's podcast of Data for All, brains over bots, why humans are needed in an AI world. Welcome to the Data for All podcast. I'm Charlie Apigian.
And I'm Charlie Yielding, where we want to empower you to think different with data.
And on today's podcast, we are focusing on you.
Me?
No, not you, Charlie. Come on now. We're focusing on our listeners or the humans that are still out there. Mm-hmm. We know they're still out there. And there's a lot of questions that we're seeing. Also, we're at that point where we believe that humans still have value. Mm-hmm. Humans can enhance their lives with the use of AI. And we just want to, again, be that calm in this chaotic world of AI and hopefully help people onto the productivity wave that we're seeing, as well as all the other really cool things out there.
Yeah, so there's beginners, there's intermediates, and then there's advanced. Yes. We're going to talk through a little bit of all of that.
I think so. And just in general, Charlie, how you doing these days?
I'm doing pretty good. It's a busy last quarter of the year.
Okay.
But overall, I'm really excited. Like I've been spending a lot of time with some of the new AI tools that have come out and whatnot, and it's been a very positive experience overall, I think.
Yeah, I think that's why, I know that we are now talking about AI in every episode, which we have to. Mm-hmm. But we also are waking up and trying new things every day. Mm-hmm. And I've recently, there's 2 or 3 new things that I've tried. I'm like, oh, wow, I can't wait to talk about that on the podcast. And so I feel that's part of our role. It's breaking down all the chaos, and I keep using the word chaos, but I really feel that's what it is.
Yeah.
Because there's 50 new applications a day. Which one should you be actually using? Which one should you waste your time on? Or which ones will actually save you time? Mm-hmm. All of that, I think, is where I keep thinking of how we can help others, so that it's more about we want to empower others to think different with data and also be productive.
Heck yeah.
I like it. All right. So my world, let's see. So we're in November, and I think this will be one of those podcasts that goes out in November. And for the academic world, it's like the world shuts down in November. So September and October for me are just unbelievable. Because I like to do a lot of external stuff. I like to do a lot of speaking engagements. And if I'm not at a speaking engagement, I'm usually at another event. Mm-hmm. And so I could tell my wife was starting to get a little bit mad at me these last few weeks.
Oh yeah,
because there wasn't a single night I was home at night, because there's always an event.
Yeah. And
that's just September and October. That's just what I mean. It's people externally come back from all of their summer vacations, then academia, we start back up. So for me, it's 2 worlds always colliding. And I just know I'm always those are the 2 months. But then November hits and I start to see a little bit of a break. December, it's just Christmas parties, and then you ride off into the sunset. So I love when November starts.
Okay.
I always say I'm limping to the finish line, and I limped there and ended with, I think, 10 to 15 straight days of something every night. Luckily, the last couple have been with my wife, so I feel I'm redeeming myself a little bit.
You've been inclusive.
Yeah. But as I do that, I get a lot of questions about AI.
I imagine so.
And I'm assuming you do as well. Mm-hmm. And so I thought we could start with that, and then that works right into, I think we're going to stick to what we can do for individuals. But I think at the end, if you want, Charlie, if we have the time, let's think about what does it mean for businesses and small businesses. You had some really good examples. I'd love to hear those as well. So what do you think? Should we start with those questions?
Heck yeah.
You want me to just start with mine? You want to add any? We can do that as you'd like, but a lot of times what I've been doing is speaking about AI in a very simplistic way, depending on the group. And so if they're techie, I would go more techie. Mm-hmm. If they are retirement homes, I do it a certain way, which I'm going back to the same retirement home that I spoke at just a little bit ago. And no, I'm not ready to make that my final residence yet. I know you're about ready to make that joke.
Well, I mean, I wasn't going to, but now that you brought it up.
Now that I brought it up, yeah. But so depending on the audience, of course, I get the different levels. But I'm getting kind of the same things. And the first is always just the, is it going to replace my job? And when we hear that, what's your initial reaction? Because I know you've heard that too.
Yeah, I mean, we've talked about it on the podcast before, and I think that we're firmly in the we're firmly in the belief that AI is not going to take your job; it's going to enhance your job, and so somebody using AI is going to take your job. Having said that, though, OpenAI they've changed their kind of their impact statement to include general AI, and so they're looking towards a future where they build an AI bot that is specific to a vertical, meaning like it could act like a doctor, and it'll do the initial screenings, and it'll say this is likely what it is based off of this evidence and things like that. And that's essentially what a doctor does. But could and we'll get into this a little bit more. But could a general AI built to be a specific expert in a vertical take over for a human being completely? Because in healthcare, I would say that's probably you would probably want to not trust it the most in that area.
Sure.
But then there's other areas where you could trust it a lot easier, like where it's not life or death potentially if it makes an incorrect decision and whatnot. And so we'll see a lot more use cases where the stakes aren't very high, but eventually I think that their current plan is to get an AI bot that people lean on even in expert type situations.
And I think that then hits to the second question I get a lot of. So it's not replacing your job, but what will AI replace for people's tasks or daily tasks, things that you're doing every day where it's manually pretty hard to do. How will AI help in that? And that is one where we see a lot of these use cases out there, whether it's the ability to write something, create, or to automate specific tasks that used to take you a long time to do.
Yeah. Well, there's RPA or robotic processing automation has been around for a while.
Sure.
But it's just like a set of code, except for it's, move the mouse here, click this, put this information in, and it essentially uses a computer for you. But if anything changes, like if they move, if it's a website that you use on a regular basis, which is how we've tried to implement RPA before, it can't tell the difference between a box that was here versus one that was moved down, 20 pixels or whatever, because it's just like it throws an error, it gives up, you've got to reprogram it to do it correctly and all that kind of stuff. So it's a lot of maintenance for your automated process. But I do think that those types of RPA endeavors with an AI attached to it are going to be a lot more efficient in the future. Yeah,
and basically to dummy that down, RPA is a lot of if-then statements, basically. And so in the if-then generation of AI, if anything changed, it could completely break that process.
Right. But with AI, you could say when you're on this page, you're looking for this particular field, and you don't have to drag the mouse to it. You can just say, find this field, put this information in, and then, hit this other button or whatever.
Yeah.
And you can tell it what it's looking for, and then it can find it rather than, being dependent on you for every single pixel clicked on and whatnot.
Yeah, and then to take it the step further, I will get this a lot where people are like, oh, you're using AI all the time. How has it enhanced your life? And I'm like, I don't know if it really has enhanced my life, or is it that it's getting there. Like I'm still trying stuff out, but since I'm spending so much time learning how to do it, it's not yet gotten to a point where I'm like, I wake up every morning and I get my digest of things for me, and then, it tells me what I should eat today, and I'm not there yet.
Yeah, well, I think we're all in that same spot. Like we're using it as best we can, knowing that tomorrow it could be different.
Yes.
And so those routine operations and whatnot, they're not routine yet because we're playing catch up every single day.
Yep.
Every week you get this has been the most amazing AI week ever, and it's just so many more tools. Like you said earlier, there's so much to choose from that it's hard to get started, and it feels like it might be hard for people to get into it not knowing exactly where to start.
Yeah.
And so I get that question sometimes, is like, how do I get into AI in general, and I'll point them towards Claude 2 or the free version of GPT, and just like ask it questions, play with it. Be curious with it. That's where I start, or that's where I started, and that's where I recommend everybody start. Like, don't immediately try to use it to improve stuff. Just be curious, play with it, figure stuff out, and then start to think about, well, what do I do that I don't want to do anymore?
Yeah, and I think we'll go right into that idea, because I keep thinking about new products versus existing products. And where it will help a lot of people is when it is embedded into the products they already use. And so they a lot of people don't even know they're now seeing these enhancements, like, oh, that's great that it does that. Well, that wasn't there a year ago because of obviously new technology.
So when you talk about an enhancement, what's an example?
A simple one would be creating PowerPoint slides. And so I've used the app called Beautiful.ai, and used to be, what it did really well was it forced you into a structure on your slide so it looked good. That's hence the name Beautiful.
Yeah.
And so you never made the ugly slide, and I really liked that. So it always would kind of force you to make it simple if that's what you're looking for. It always had the right template colors and fonts, so everything looked the same, and I loved that about it. Well, about 3 months ago, it now allows you to use a prompt, and you can say, create a slide that tells you the top 5 college football teams of all time, and give me a picture of their most prolific coach and the number of wins. And I'm saying that because literally I did that in front of an audience once, and it created it. And so you had Alabama on there, and it shows Bear Bryant, and then it had Michigan, and it had Bo Schembechler.
Why did it have Michigan? I thought you said good teams.
Ooh. Well, now remember, prolific as in number of wins, and so it definitely had the right algorithm for determining the right teams to include in that. That's why Michigan was on there.
So like back in the day when other schools didn't have football programs, Michigan was just trouncing everybody, right?
We have been being the best for over 100 and something years. And let's just remember that right now, Michigan is the best. There's no such thing as scandal.
I'm not keeping up with that stuff anyways. Like, I'm from the SEC, and so we run into scandals all the time.
There is one day coming up where I will, at the end of, let's say around 3:30 Central Time, I will either crawl into a hole and not come out for a year, or just be the most ecstatic person ever. And that's
I don't know
the
if I knew
Michigan-Ohio State game.
I don't know that I knew football impacted you so much.
That game does.
Okay. Well, I think between the two schools, I dislike Ohio State more. So I could see myself rooting against Ohio State in that game. So
if I could get any AI to help make sure that Ohio State loses. Now most of my family is from Ohio. So we always got together with our family, and we for over 80 years in Ohio, and we were the Michigan folks. And so we'd come down, and if we won, we were the happy ones. And, because the game was always, back then the game was always before Thanksgiving.
Okay.
Now it's always after Thanksgiving. So we don't have that anymore. But regardless of that, I just hate Ohio State.
Yeah, same.
And there's no hate. You don't hate people, but do I hate those colors? And notice absolutely. I never wear those. I don't wear red or.
I mean, red, silver, white, all that kind of stuff together. Nobody cares.
No, Ohio State.
And they got a Buckeye. Like, who cares about the Buckeyes?
So I did ask AI who's better, and it definitely said Michigan. So we'll just leave it at that.
Yeah, just all right,
keep
set
moving
that down on the table.
Yes. And so anyways, those are some of the things to think about. So that would be an existing product.
Okay.
Again, making slides, or it could be something that's now embedded into Microsoft Outlook. You're starting to see that where it now asks you, hey, this is a time that people probably don't want you sending it. Would you like to hold off and schedule that for 10 a.m., and things like that. So we're going to talk about a lot of them here today. Yeah. Then the last one, I think we'll leave this question for more of the end, is, will I be needed in an AI world? And this is one I think a lot about, right? I got 4 kids and soon to have probably grandkids. You never know.
Wait, what?
I don't know. No, there's no news.
Oh, okay.
No
okay.
news. No. I'm talking like 5 years from now.
At any moment it could happen.
I think with 4 kids, there's a good chance I'm going to have a grandkid at some point, right?
Yeah.
And all my kids are now 19 or older. So, I'm assuming that.
But I think that's a good assumption.
That's a good assumption. I do know statistics, and that's one I think I could be pretty safe on. But who's going to be needed? What's going to be needed? What is the human in the loop here, right?
Yeah.
And I see a lot of value. I'm actually more encouraged today than I was maybe 6 months ago.
So how are you more encouraged now than you were 6 months ago?
I'm seeing the difference between technology and the components that lead to actionable results that a human has to be involved in. So as long as action is going to be done, and I say action is a very, ambiguous term. It's anything that we're doing, right? And we're using data to drive that action, or we're using something. And in the past, we would use conversations, right? Conversations lead to action. I don't think that's going away.
You mean interpersonal conversation?
Yes.
Okay.
Now, the idea of the co-pilot, the ability to enhance decisions, the ability to do, but the replacement, there's going to be replacement of stuff. But I'm talking about the big time stuff. If you are going to change a community, if you are going to do something major at your organization, there's still going to be dialogue, right?
Yeah.
Until we are not in the business at all anymore, which we're going to be, because businesses are here, first of all, to give us jobs, but the real point is to do things for humans. And so if that's the case, we are needed. When we are needed, there has to be something at the end and something at the beginning that happens, and then in the middle. So I think of when I solve a problem, has 4 stages. I go from the dilemma, then I go get the data, then I create insights, and then I storytell to lead to action. So action being the last thing. Crafting the dilemma, asking the right question is a human thing.
Yeah, I agree with that.
Okay. And at some point, if I'm wrong, today I feel comfortable that for the ongoing next few years, asking the right question is going to be the skill we need more than anything else. That is a human skill.
Yeah. I feel like, so what you're talking about is like the networking aspect of it. Like AI can't network right now in any kind of meaningful way.
That's right. And networking is one of those where it is a long haul, right? It's continually, you have to show up, you have to do things. And, if that goes away, what does that do? Because decisions will still be made. And if it's made by a human, they're going to want to trust something.
Yeah.
And so I think there's a lot to that. But in the beginning, to get the right things happening in the middle, grabbing data, creating the insight, automating something, there has to be the correct question asked in the beginning, the dilemma. Then once you get there, what do you do with it? Right? Okay. So if we automate something, big deal.
Yeah.
I'm now sending you happy birthday text messages. Okay. What's the point?
So let me try to qualify this in a way, because as you're talking, I'm building an image in my brain, and so you've got a task or whatever, a problem, all that kind of stuff. Imagine it as a sandwich, and so it's two people on the outside with some AI in the middle.
There you go.
Okay.
Yeah. So we're eating a AI sandwich.
I don't know. No, I don't know a good way to say that, but that's
but the beginning has to start with a human. The middle can be AI, and if it's leading to something that's actionable, it has to include a human.
Yeah,
it has to.
Okay.
Yeah, and I say that again. I'm not talking about automating something, and that's it. But at the end of whatever it is, customer satisfaction, whatever is the end goal. Humans are usually part of that for now, right?
Yeah.
And so
AI doesn't have an agenda.
It doesn't. And yes, is there the thing will we get to a point where there's artificial general intelligence, and what will that then bleed into those human aspects? I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know either. That was kind of what I was talking about earlier with the expertise in each vertical. Is like they're approaching, or their attempt is to approach general intelligence.
Yeah.
To where it can work proactively in an environment to be a physician by proxy, or whatever you want to call it. Like you still need a person to cover that, because I doubt there's any insurance that exists or will exist that's like, yeah, I'm good with the AI making the calls.
Well, and now if you think about that, let's say there is a hard decision that had to be made, and there's something that somebody has a diagnosis that needs to be conveyed.
Mm-hmm.
Is that a text message if it's AI? Is it an email? Or is it you need somebody to sit down with you? Because now you got so much more than just your health at that point.
Yeah.
You've got your mental faculties about you, because the minute you're told you have hypertension or diabetes, you might go into depression,
mm-hmm.
especially if it's told to you in a way that is, not very encouraging.
Yeah, like mechanical.
Yes. And so that's the part, does the diagnosis have to be a human?
Yeah.
At the end, it's nice to have a check, right?
Yeah.
But I think what to do, how to convey it is still something.
Yeah.
You want that human.
It's like, it's the conversation we've had around music and art, is like there's a soul to the words that come out of our mouth.
Yes.
And that's backed up by experience, and we're trying to convey a message to you, the individual. Mm-hmm. Whereas like AI can say the things, but as of right now, there's no soul to it. And so to your point, if you're getting bad news from AI, it feels to me like it would feel bad all the way around, because you may be able to ask it questions like, well, what can I do? What can I do to, make this better? What are my options? Or whatever the kind of questions you come up with. You could ask it and it could answer those questions, but you're dealing with a mechanical, emotionless transaction. Mm-hmm. And so it's up to you after that point to go process all of those emotions. Whereas like a physician being in the room with you could, like, just their demeanor alone, like the way that they're looking at you when you're saying these things, like if they've got a smile on their face, like it could help you understand that maybe this isn't so bad, even though it's a shock and something I don't want to happen. Whereas it's with the machine, it's always just going to be, this is it. You've got this, and this is what you can do, and I hope you do good at it. And that's basically it. Yeah,
and I always think of that as I always look at it, whether it's a text message or an email, mm-hmm. and we usually think the negative part of it, right? In other words, we get it, and it might be, hey, we need you to do this next week. I'm like, what did I do wrong?
Oh, yeah.
But if somebody told that to me with empathy or, with a smile, I wouldn't take it that way. And so there's something to that. I think that we continue to need that assurance, that human connection.
Yeah, context matters.
Yes.
But I've known people that are like that, where you speaking to them face to face, they're perfectly fine individuals, but then when they go to write, they write like they're big old a-holes.
That's right.
And so like AI could work on the not being an a-hole through text thing, but it's still just text.
Yeah.
And even if I were a human being emailing you that bad news, it still wouldn't be good, because me being physically in the room with you when I'm telling you, if I'm the physician, mm-hmm. that's what the difference is. And that's like, I think that's going to be a continuing idea, is that the person in the room, like you said, it's going to be what controls like the outcome of the AI's involvement.
Yeah. Yeah. And, and I'll use this to segue to our first real topic. Mm-hmm. If you think about a doctor today, and I'm just going to do the stereotypical doctor, mm-hmm. they have 15 minutes with you before they got to move on to the next person, mm-hmm. and it's very impersonal sometimes.
Yeah.
Why? Because they're so busy. Why are they so busy? Because they got to do all this other stuff that they don't enjoy doing. And if you took that away and all they did was the human connection part.
Yeah.
And they understand how to take those that analysis or diagnosis mm-hmm. and convey it to you in a way that's positive and actionable for mm-hmm. you. Wouldn't that be nice?
Yeah.
Right. And so now I'll tell you this, at Belmont, which is where we are right now in this mm-hmm. beautiful podcast room, and we keep getting new tech every time we mm-hmm. do. So I hope we keep sounding better.
These are new microphones.
Yes, and I love this little Rodecaster we've got. I haven't.
Mm-hmm. There we go.
Yay, I did it. So I got one in for you today.
I required at least one button push.
That's right. And I haven't hit the wah-wah yet, but I will.
Okay.
All right, there we go. But our new College of Medicine, they're teaching empathy. Like it's an actual course. I mean, they're trying to add the human connection, which was never there before. It was just learn all the medical stuff and now go.
They're teaching bedside manner?
They're literally teaching bedside manner.
Is that not something that is common?
I have never gone to medical college, so I don't know. I just know I was lucky enough to be an observer during the accreditation process, so I saw what they're doing, and I'm really impressed.
That's really cool.
And they're going to take a data-driven approach with the human factor as well, and then focus on areas like rural communities and how their struggles are different than somewhere else. And that's something that I am really excited about. So we can do that. So becoming more productive means it opens up the opportunity to do more of the value add that we have as humans.
Yeah. So, when you say more productivity, it's like it's focused productivity on the things that we do need to be doing. So if you're a doctor, do you need to look over everybody's charts? I mean, that's probably a bad example. Do you need to be the person who inputs all the information into the people's charts? Yeah,
but it also is maybe instead of it taking 10 minutes to look at a chart or 5 minutes to take a look at a chart, the summary can be now read over in 30 seconds. And if you have to get deeper in, then it might take 5 minutes.
Yeah.
But it's that kind of stuff where I shouldn't be walking in to the room with you if I'm a doctor, and that's the first time I know what the heck's going on, right? So those are the things that I think would be the major value adds in the future. They might even learn who you are, believe it or not, right?
So I've been on it's funny you bring this up because I've been on a search for a general practitioner. Once I hit 40, I was like, maybe I should build a relationship with a doctor. So far, every single effort that I've put into it has been that like they come in, they're just like, hi, bye, we'll see you later. And like I asked one specifically to do an endocrinology type hormone test.
Yeah.
And they didn't do it. Who knows why? It just didn't happen. And then they did do some of my regular blood work, and then they told me they would call me back, and then they never called me back. And then I called them, and they were like, well, you got the report, right? And I was like, yeah, but I don't know what's in the report. It has numbers. Those numbers might be good. I don't know.
Yeah.
But I didn't have vision then to take a picture of it and get GPT to tell me if that was good or not.
That's true. Yeah. And, I still have my doctor back in Murfreesboro, which is a 40-minute trip for me to go.
If I had a good doctor that spent time with me.
I'm not switching.
Yeah.
I go once a year basically. And every time I go, it's as if it's my friend sitting there. He's known me for over 20 years.
Yeah.
He knows everything I've done from a nutrition standpoint. He has the same problems with his hands that I have, which your hands get really cold, that Raynaud's phenomenon. So he can relate to that. So I can ask him questions that I know that he'll remember my history. He knows I'm a runner when I walk in. He knows I want to be active. He knows I was vegetarian for most of the last 20 years. And so, and for a while I was battling pre-diabetic conditions.
Oh, were you?
Yeah.
Was this back in the day or recently?
I'm always teetering on pre-diabetic.
Like you could be.
Yeah. And there's a certain number if it got over 100, and I've always been like 99. And now I'm like 92.
Okay.
But I was really close for a while. And so we were managing that. And then I realized why, things were going the way they were. And it was basically my diet. And when I changed that, things got a little bit better. And so he remembers all of that. I'm not giving that up.
Yeah. I mean, that's the human impact of those types of relationships. Now, in his case, like, where would AI come in?
I think there's a lot of times I'm in there and he doesn't know what's wrong with me, right? In the future, that will get sped up because I don't have to go through. Maybe it's this. We'll give you this test. Maybe it's this. We have to give you this test.
Yeah.
I think there'll be a more targeted approach, and that's what I'm seeing most. It's we're going away from the shotgun approach, which is let's throw everything at it.
Yeah.
To you know what? There's a high likelihood there's like 90% chance that it's one of these two things.
Yeah.
And so I don't need to give you these other ones. And first of all, it's going to cost less. It's hopefully going to be quicker. If I'm driving down to Murfreesboro, a 40-minute trip to get to my doctor, I don't want to go 5 times.
That's true.
But I do want to go to him. And so I would trust him with data.
Yeah.
Very much so. And so if he told me that the algorithm said this and he agrees, I would agree too.
See, that's one of the problems that I'm having looking for a GP is that I'm looking for somebody who's constantly working on staying up to date with like all the new information coming out, because healthcare research has exploded in the past few years because we've got access to all the data and stuff now. And so the way I see it from a GP perspective is like, 90% of the things, and I'm just making these numbers up, I don't actually know, but 90% of the things you see are probably common issues that you've seen multiple times, hypertension, high cholesterol, arthritis and stuff like that, especially in your aging community. I'm not taking a shot at you, but
I know.
You get used to a group of symptoms and outcomes and all this other type of stuff. Well, then what happens when you come in with like something that's a little further out, like a little less common? Like, how does the doctor's expertise work then? And that's where I feel like AI could help a doctor hold more expertise across a broader set of information, criteria, data that's constantly changing, and all of that kind of stuff. Because not only could they have, so you could say, what's the deal with these symptoms as a doctor? And that's exactly how you write it down. Like, what's the deal with it? So you say, what's the deal with this? And then it says, it could come back and say, it's here are the likely, here are the things that it likely could be, and maybe it's 3 of them. But then based on new research, here's some other stuff that you may want to look at because there's, it's a smaller body of work, but it's saying something different. And so then that would give the doctor a cue, like, okay, so maybe I need to go read this paper. And instead of reading that paper, they put it into GPT and get
that's right.
It gives them an overview of it.
Absolutely.
And then they get that kind of continued learning, or CLE, on the fly with AI assisting them, so they don't have to potentially go to those classes that are. They'll go to CLE, lawyers do the same thing, but they'll pick a topic and then they'll learn what's happened in the past year on that topic. But every other topic, it doesn't matter. They don't learn all the new stuff. They just learn a very small portion of some of the new stuff.
Yeah, and you don't realize like the orthopedics out there, they're having to learn the new state of the art on how to do things with hips and shoulders, and so keeping up on that. I mean, I'm excited that data will be a big part of that. I'll give you another example. It doesn't have to be AI, by the way. It just has to be the ability to aggregate data in a way that can help you make better decisions, right?
But AI is going to do that for us.
But yes, it will. And it'll always enhance that. But right now, an example is we're working with a hospital in a war country, and I'll just leave it at that, where they are afraid that they'll go from the 15 people coming through the emergency room to 800 overnight. And so how do you track them? And so they're looking at just ways to track people. And so we're looking at RFID within the rooms and sensors. And by the way, I have no idea how I got on this project, but I'm fascinated by the data part. But then if you've got a device, let's get heart rates. Let's get, the sweat rate and oxygen levels. I mean, we've got that with our watches. Why couldn't we have it with a device? Yeah. Well, now you got to it's not just the device you now need the infrastructure to be able to take that and put it into their chart so that there's an alert. But if your heart rate all of a sudden skyrockets, you want a nurse in that room. And so those are things that I'm like, and we can't find that right now. There's no company out there where off the shelf you can get that.
Oh, I bet there would. Well, I imagine some of that has to do with healthcare records in general.
Yes.
And how you have to transmit that data securely.
Yep.
But it does feel like in the future we'll have a bracelet that we put on when we get to the hospital that manages all of our biomarkers the entire time we're there and the location in the hospital, to your point.
And think about how much time you just saved a nurse. How many times do they have to come in your room every hour to do your vitals to make sure that you're still okay, when all you have to do now is look at your chart, or to be alerted when it goes up or goes down?
Well, so I'm thinking in the box. I'm not thinking outside of the box because it doesn't have to be a bracelet. It could be an armband that's a couple inches wide that can also do your blood pressure.
And actually, an armband is better. So I've seen things that are like things that almost like tape on your chest is one. Another one is an armband. The wrist is not a good indicator. So you won't see people wearing.
Is weak, right?
Yeah. And then also, how do you... I have even seen it's like almost like a necklace, and you put it around, and that's what tracks you. It's got GPS location plus RFID because again, inside a hospital, I need to know you're in room 3.
Yeah,
GPS isn't going to tell me that.
With your particular situation, you're looking at mass casualty, like the potential for mass casualty in a way where, like you said, a hospital that normally deals with 15 patients a day gets 800.
Yeah.
I mean, they max out, because
there's now 3 people in a room, kind of stuff. So, yeah.
And so where are they? Is everybody attended to? Because, and then like what level of casualty are they? Are they, near death? Are they stable? Or, you gotta do all of that really quick.
Yep.
And if you're outfitting people with, a sensor array, if you will, then that, to your point, like the nurses won't be going around individually checking. They'll go to specific people based off of predetermined markers. But then all of that can be managed by AI.
And so going to what it will replace, people are like, well, wouldn't that replace a bunch of nurses? And I'm like, half of the nursing jobs right now are unfilled.
Yeah. I mean, is it really half?
If it's not, it's it's up there, right?
We need nurses for sure.
We need nurses, or we need them to be more efficient and take things off them so they can add value back to, because the number one most positive experience, anecdotally, of course, is always going to be based on the nurse. Right? Doctor sees you for 2 seconds, nurse is with you 24 hours a day.
Right.
And so, and I'm saying anecdotal because that's my dad talking. I hear my dad, when he's in the hospital for 3 or 4 days, which has happened, unfortunately, too often, he comes back and just says, those nurses were amazing. Always. He's never said a bad thing about a nurse because they're amazing people, but they're also working their tails off.
Yeah. Well, I mean, that's the commonality between all of these topics is that we're going to, everybody's going to be empowered to do more. And so if you're a business, and like we'll get to the economic stuff later, but if you're a business, you're going to be able to scale without the human capital, but you can't get rid of the human capital.
That's right. Yeah. All right. Let's get to some of our topics here because we're already at a point where this is almost data in healthcare.
Yeah.
But what we wanted to talk about was, we get the question a lot about how it can help. And when I think of help, I'm thinking productivity first. So we're going to talk about a couple of the different tools out there, but I want to go back to this idea of there's a lot of new products and you got to go try them. You got to do the free trial and then you got to see if it's what you want. And then you're going to get frustrated because you're trying to do certain things with it and it doesn't work.
Yeah.
Or you can use your existing products that also now have these new technologies. So one of the first thing that I would say, if I'm trying to get into AI, the first thing I'd see is what are the products I use a lot? And I'd find out if there's any new AI tools in them.
Oh yeah. You're talking about like office products.
Sure.
And you brought up Adobe earlier.
And that's a great example of, I think talking about Adobe is a great example of the different levels of AI productivity. And I'm saying productivity, but if I'm using Midjourney for creating images, I'm doing that for fun, right? I'm creating the cool background or a picture of Chewbacca drinking a latte in France.
You don't need exact work.
That's right.
Yeah.
And it doesn't integrate perfectly with other tools. Like, so if I'm using Adobe Illustrator to create like our thumbnails for this podcast right here, when I'm doing that is something I have to use another tool for, then I have to import it. And then, there's a lot to that where what if that was embedded already into Adobe? And that's one that we're seeing. So Adobe now has this product called Firefly and it's nice. It's nice. And it works perfectly with Adobe products. So if I'm already using Adobe products, I should look first at what Adobe has before I look at adding another product.
Okay. So if you're a Microsoft person,
yes,
I can already tell you, if you're not at a big company, you're not getting access to Copilot yet because they've put Copilot on their enterprise license. This is just FYI for everybody out there who's like, well, I use Office all the time.
I know, and you keep thinking that all of those prompts are coming to you, right?
Yeah, and I do believe that they will eventually, but right now it's only on the enterprise license because Microsoft is getting that money.
And what's an enterprise license?
So, when you're a business or even an individual, you can get access to Office products for like $5 to $7 or something like that. But when you're a business, you go into these it's like scaled licensing. And so E3, to be specific, used to be what everybody was on, like big businesses, small businesses, everybody, and that used to be an enterprise level license. Well, here recently they've changed the E3 licensing to more of like a mid-sized business license, and then they've added enterprise licensing on top, or at least they've made the enterprise license like a higher level. And so if we pay $22 per license per person where I work, the enterprise license would be $36. But then to get Copilot on top of it, it's an additional $30. And so it's a big
$30 per person?
$30 per person. Yep.
Wow.
But it integrates with the entire Office suite. So every single app you use will have Copilot built into it. And so I think that they're getting it sorted out with the enterprise stuff because they know the enterprises will pay. Because if you're an enterprise, what's $30 to a project manager that makes $150,000 a year when this literally lightens the load? Like, so what we're talking about, you can, the project manager can have the meeting, AI can do all of the organization, sorting, note taking, all that kind of stuff, and then the project manager just works on making sure that people get their tasks done, and not the nitty gritty details in the middle. And so they can be higher level, more efficient folks in the end. Having said that, though, if you don't have the enterprise license, you're just out of luck at this point.
Yeah, but if you think about and this is just an example of where it could go. Let's say I have to create a newsletter based on last quarter's results. I could literally go into Microsoft Copilot type of things. This is, again, the future for us. It's not there, but it might actually be in the system already, where I could say, create a newsletter based on last quarter's results and email it out to the higher ups, the senior leadership. And just hit, and it will go to Excel, create the bar charts and the trend lines, import it into some type of Word document, save it, and then goes off in through Outlook as an attachment, or however you decide to do that. That is here, right? Yeah.
So I'm actually working on something like that right now at work, where we're creating a new report that's got it's got time management data from one system. Actually, it's got time management data from two systems, and then it's got ticketing information from one system. But it's three different facets of three different types of tickets, and then it's got call data from the help desk. And so I'm putting all of our data together in kind of one big group, so I can pull these. It's essentially a monthly report that includes financials and operations, and so it's just a P&L document. But we're doing it per we're doing a P&L per client, and so not like I've got to spit out 36 or so P&Ls every single month based off of data that we collect naturally. And then I've had to actually work to create a couple of extra columns of data for positions that didn't have software that they interacted with where I could capture it. And so I'm taking all of that and putting it in there. And the first time I'm working through it a lot. Like you mentioned earlier in the episode, like we're still in the figuring it out and testing it out stuff. But in a couple of months, I want to be set to where all I have to do is review it and then send it on.
Yeah, and so you're having to integrate things together, and that's where if it was all in the Microsoft world, it would just be the Microsoft products working together. So you're having to do the glue part of keeping things. Let's speak of that. If I was an individual and I know I wanted to have ChatGPT work with my email, work with like 50 different things, I think if Shauna Sprague, our good friend, was here,
she would be like,
what would she say?
She would say Zapier.
She would say Zapier.
Yeah.
And so I think there's this, you can look at existing products you already have and see what's built in there. But if you want to go on AI or integrations, I always think of integrations because it's taking all the different products that you're using and kind of integrating them together.
And so real quick, suggestion is if you are a person in this position, you don't try to think about everything all at once, but start making lists. Lists of things you do on a regular basis, lists of things you do kind of on a one-off basis, and then everything you use to get those types of things done. And then once you've got those lists kind of compiled, then you start, to your point earlier, you start thinking about, okay, well, which one of these can I start to use the AI on?
Yep.
And which one of these can I potentially not? And so that's a good place to start for sure.
Well, I'm at that spot. So
yeah?
you can see, and you can see it in here if you're watching on the video. I have a brand new computer. It's got the M2 Pro, 2 terabytes of hard drive space. Since we have all this video now, I gotta go through, and I start over with computers. I never do a transfer.
Really?
Never. Oh, it's like Christmas.
Just so you can start from scratch and
just
do it
because
better.
It's so much fun.
Okay.
Yes, and it's it's like cleaning your room. You know?
I don't disagree with that.
Or when you move to a new house and you don't take your old furniture, that which we just did.
Yeah.
And so it's so much fun because you're starting over. And so I wrote out that list of, okay, what am I where do I want to keep my data? How am I going to capture things? Because I'm still a big fan of capturing the minute I think of that. So drafts is going to be that. How am I? What do I want my email tool to be? Do I want a new one? Do I want to try something new? Because I'm not really good at processing through Outlook, but that's what I've been using.
Yeah.
And so all of that I wrote out that list, and I actually drew it as a diagram because there's Charlie at the middle, and then everything I do for writing. So I don't like to write in Microsoft Word. So what do I like to write it?
Who does?
Nobody does. So I like it to be very clean, and I like Markdown.
That's the iOS app, right?
Well, Markdown is a type of writing. So you do like 2 hashtags, and that's a heading 2. So it's a way of it's almost like HTML or CSS, but it's a little bit different. So hard to explain, but you do like there's a lot of apps like Bear is one, Ulysses, but they use Markdown, and Markdown is easy to transfer to any type of file format or for web.
Okay.
So it's really good for blogging, and then it can be any style after that.
Yeah, like Word is real bad about our fonts don't transfer well.
Yes, there you
all
go.
That kind of stuff.
Yeah, and so that's why I like to write in Markdown. I got used to it. And I used to do a ton of like HTML and CSS stuff back in the day, so it was an easy transfer for me.
Okay.
So where do I like to write? How do I want to consume information? All of that. So I've got a lot of those I wanted to share today. I will start with, if I'm talking about productivity to somebody, there's Zapier or Make. And I want you to go look at those two. And I would base it on what applications it does really well with. And so watch a couple of YouTube videos. Make is a little bit, I think it's make.io, is a little bit cheaper than Zapier, but Zapier's been around forever. It's at least 10 years old. I know we've talked about that with Shauna. It's well over 10 years old. So those are the two. But to even start simpler is I love drafts. And again, it's the word drafts with an S. You can have it on every device. The minute you put in a note, it's on every one of your devices.
Yeah.
So that's really nice. But then it also has, and it's always had this ability to do stuff with that note. So I could then hit a button and it will automatically make it a to-do list in Microsoft To Do.
Okay.
Or I could have it automatically go as a repository. Maybe I wrote a list of favorite places to go next year. And so I could automatically, within drafts, send it off to my note repository, which might be like OneNote or
that's
Evernote.
what I use, OneNote.
Yeah. Right. And I never have liked that. Darn, I just can't do OneNote, but it's integrated in everything. And so I love drafts for that. And the reason I really like it is they have a directory where I don't have to create those automations. They automatically they're in a directory. So I can go into the directory in drafts and just type Todoist, if that's my task management system, and will show me every one of those automations that somebody else has already created. So it's got this huge library, and you just click it, install it, and it's in your drafts application, and you can use it. So I have one where I can click on it. It brings it to Todoist. So it creates a task out of it, and then it automatically catalogs it in one of my note-taking apps, which I'm using Bear right now. I'm going to switch that, but right now it's going to that, and then it gives it a date.
When you say Bear, you saying BEAR?
BEAR is an app. It's a note-taking app.
Okay.
And I don't like writing in it, so that's why I'm probably going to switch away from that one. But that to me is a good example. So those kind of apps where you can capture and then send it out. Apple Shortcuts is another one, where you could use that.
I love shortcuts. That's more like Power Automate type stuff.
Yeah.
Like it's not general, or it's not general any kind of, it's only going to do one task.
For now.
For now.
It's and I think there's been some major changes to that for sure. And then again, you go into the existing products. Obviously, there's a lot of automations. Like I was using Airtable for a while. It's basically a web-based database, and there's so much you can do just within Airtable. And I can't remember what they have blocks, and then they have certain other aspects. I can't remember what they call them because it's been a while since I've used it, but you can automate so much, like something from your email. If you send an email off, it can capture that person's email and put it into a database. Little things like that.
Yeah. So you got a running list of stuff.
Yeah. So anything. You and Shauna have obviously started AI for All, the other podcast that is just going out, and then of course Shauna has FemLogic AI.
Yeah.
So you all are talking about these kind of products a lot. Is there any other tips and tricks from the automation side?
Yeah. So I kind of wanted to, I guess it's a good time to talk about the baker.
Sure.
So we...
and the candlestick maker?
Yeah. The butcher, the baker, the candlestick maker. So I'm a part of a group that's into AI, we'll say it. Like the 3 of the 5 of us are constantly talking about it so much that the other 2 are annoyed by it.
Good.
But one of us has a friend that's a baker, and she's from Ecuador, and so she's not really good with texting in English. And so she had a problem that he was talking about with us, and she was like, I can't like basically just laid it all out. Like I'm having trouble communicating in English because she gets all of her all of her orders come through WhatsApp, which is weird, but that's just how she has it set up. And so we were like, oh, that's easy. You just go to type it in Spanish and tell GPT to translate it in English, and it's a direct, like qualified translation. It's not just like they're translating each word. They're translating the context of the message to something that we would understand. So the translation is awesome. So she started doing that. And so she's using AI to facilitate better communication. She's using AI to facilitate faster communication because she's just slamming it out in Spanish, which is natural to her, and she's getting the English product. Where if she was doing it in English, it would just take so much longer.
Yeah.
And there could be things that are lost in translation as well because she's taking what they're saying and putting that in and translating Spanish first, and then responding to the Spanish and then sending it back.
Yeah, it's a lot of steps.
It is. But so she's at the point right now where she's getting so much through the text because she's being so responsive that she's no longer at the point where she can handle all the orders coming in through text. And so my buddy on the group was talking to us about it, and we were spitballing different ideas and stuff, and we're like, well, there's companies like Zapier or AI tools like Zapier that can connect with different products and stuff. And I'm not 100% sure if they can connect with WhatsApp yet, but the possibility is there, but we've got to proof it. But she can potentially, like what we're looking at from a workflow perspective is she gets a request for an order. Then Zapier automatically sends a reply back to them saying, thanks for the request. Here's this form I need you to fill out. And it's got, size of the cake, type of cake, like all the cake questions that you could ask. Sure. I don't really know what all goes into it.
What is a cake question? Yeah, there you go.
A cake question is like
icing
how many people are going to be there.
Okay.
That type of
makes
stuff.
Sense. Do you want a Cookie Monster on the top? That was I remember that being my favorite.
Oh, really?
One as a kid. Yeah.
Well, due dates are, a big deal.
Sure.
Like when is the event? And so we're talking through all of this. And so we're going to try and work to a place where she gets that form automatically put into a spreadsheet, and then she works her baking requests through the spreadsheet. And then as she selects things in the spreadsheet, it kicks it back out and gives automatic updates to her clients.
Gotcha.
So she's not spending any time communicating, but her client's being updated on a regular basis. So there's less overall communication because she's being proactive with AI. And then we ran into an issue of potentially like, okay, well, so what if they give you 2 different dates? So the concept of her having to manually, especially on the front end, her manually checking what came back on the text and then what's in her spreadsheet is like she's always going to have to do some QC, or at least we think she is, because like if people can just reply weird, and if the AI is wrong, we all know it's going to be confidently wrong. And so if she starts messing up because of an issue like that, she's got to be aware that she's got to address it, and the only way you can be aware is for that manual QC from a human.
There you go. You got the human in there. A good example also that would keep you in the same ecosystem would be Google apps, where you could have a Google form. That form then automatically goes to Google Sheets, perfectly integrated, and it can then be transferred over to a Google Doc and different things. So again, trying to stay in the same ecosystem so you don't have to do a lot of other stuff. When it comes to like the idea of information, we got information overload these days, right? There's so much information. So we have notes for meetings, and these days I'm writing by hand again, because I was never going back to my iPad in GoodNotes and looking at my meeting notes.
Okay.
And now if I have a book, I'm doing it. I'll go back a couple of pages and go, oh, that's right, I forgot. I have the next step is reach out to this person, that kind of thing. But we're not usually good at that as humans, right? We go to a meeting, we write down a bunch of stuff, and then we never look at it again. And I'm the one guilty for that. So there's ways to capture notes for meetings. There's ways to consume content as well and do research. And so I thought there'd be a couple of things I just wanted to mention here. When it comes to notes for meetings, if you are doing a lot of virtual meetings, especially, and it doesn't have to just be virtual, but that's definitely the best use case. You can now have either something integrated, like I think Zoom now has its own way of doing transcription, but Otter.ai or Fireflies with an S, so IES, Fireflies.
So this is different from the Adobe Firefly?
Correct.
Okay.
That's why I made sure that I said IES at the end of it. But Fireflies will be like another person in your virtual meeting, and then it will do the transcription. It will know who's who. If you say I'm Charlie and I'm the other Charlie, and then it would put that in there, and it will even give you a summary of your notes. And then you can even prompt it for what kind of summary you want. If you want a summary with action steps, if you want it with, wherever somebody said we have to, like you can have like specific ways to say things, and then it will automatically make that your action steps, things like that. So I'm with a group right now, we're doing a little bit of consulting work on the side. So we're trying to use all the AI tools out there since we're brand new to doing this. And so we're using Fireflies right now.
And it's working well?
It's working well. And then we get a little ping when it's done through Slack. And then we can view those at any time. And of course, the really cool thing is they're all in one repository. So if we ever say, hey, when did we talk about that one client? It might be in 5 different transcripts, and it will pull that information directly for us. So there's a lot of stuff from the meetings and notes. So if you feel that you're overwhelmed with that, look at one of those. Again, Otter has been around forever, Otter AI, and then Fireflies is the up and coming, but I really like it. And I've used both, and I would say Fireflies I like better.
That's I really like that as a concept, because we work really hard to make sure that our meeting notes are captured and we've got them in a list and whatnot. But it's like searching for, like you said, searching for previous topics is a manual thing. Like I think we talked about it here, and I can do a Control F and try to find a keyword, but it's just gonna, it's messy. It takes up time. And if I could just ask it, because realistically, your meeting notes are just like another repository, and so it's just searching those like it would a PDF that you loaded up and stuff. So it makes perfect sense, but it would remove a lot of the issues. And a lot of the pressure from the meeting owners, who are usually higher paid individuals that are project managers and stuff like that, and it would alleviate their need to do this, thus opening up time to do the more important things, like the bookend stuff like we were talking about, like setting it up or making sure that it gets followed through on.
And one of the biggest rules, I think we've talked a lot about it, is clarity of your data and notes. That's data.
Yeah.
And if I have way too much of it, I'll never look at it. But if you give it to me in something that I can manage and see quickly and understand within a minute, oh, that was the meeting we did this. That's, or whatever it is, it'll be so much more useful.
Yeah. And you can also have in-person meetings too and call the bot.
Yeah.
And the bot can just be on the phone listening.
And we've done that. Most of our meetings where we've been using it, we always have what we call the 3D and the 2D. So some 3D means you're in person.
Okay.
2D means you're virtual. And so we always have a couple of people that can't make it. So they're virtual in that 3D meeting. And things like that. So
I like that. I'm totally gonna steal that.
Well, and I had to go. They keep talking 2D and 3D. What the heck are they talking about? And then I figured it out over time. But I like that too now. I like to say that as part of mine. When you talk about confusion and too much, you think about news. I'm just going through. So I want to talk about how we capture notes, how we consume content, and then also how we do research, because that's all ways to be more productive. Do you have a news aggregator or a news app that you use?
So it's funny that you should ask, because we didn't talk about this beforehand, but I've been on the search.
Okay.
And one that I'm interested in right now is Ground.
Ground.
Have you heard that one?
I have not. I better add that to our list.
So they say they're data-based news, and like that that's the goal that they work towards.
Okay.
Is like we're news backed by data. And so that's the trust is built in, because we're just all we're doing is explaining data.
Okay.
Or explaining the data behind the situation. So it's like news used to be back in the day. They were non-biased reporters who were talking about this, that, and the other. Like, this thing happened. These people were affected. This is what's going to happen. That type of stuff. But now you get all these, like, I don't like the fluff. I don't like if you're a newscaster, I don't want your personal opinion on all of this. I don't want your slant on it. There's, the mainstream media nowadays is so,
sensational.
Well, it's sensational, but it's like, it's crappy because they're not really giving news. They're just talking trash on whoever they're opposing and all that kind of stuff. Because do we even have non-political news cycles anymore? I can't find one.
Considering I don't listen to news because I don't want to see the political slants. Yeah,
basically.
I gotcha.
So this Ground one seems like I've checked it out a couple of times, but like you, I'm not, like, I start looking at headlines and I'm just like, oh God, we're going down the toilet at this point. Well, and
when you say fluff, like Medium is one that's out there, and that's just the word medium, like the size of your T-shirt. And that's one where we get to generate that content, but that's become so sensationalized. It's the 4 ways to do this. And you start reading, and you're like, none of these articles that I'm getting, and I'm paying for the membership for Medium, that I feel like are anything but fluff. It's about clicks. And sometimes
are they Beatty titles, or is the actual news?
No, it's Beatty titles. It's just people's opinion. They want to tell you the 4 ways they use Excel or something like that. And they've become too much where people are trying to get clicks.
Yeah.
And,
that's been a problem though.
Yeah. And I just have really noticed it on Medium, where I felt in the beginning I was getting a lot of good data science stuff.
Okay.
And so I would pay for it. And now I'm not. I have subscribed to Apple News or News Plus or whatever it is. And that's the thing. I perform going to bed, and if I want to read a couple of things, it does a good enough job of curating the world based on a couple of preferences that I've given it.
Yeah.
And where it doesn't, I can read it and fall asleep kind of stuff.
Yeah.
And so but I wouldn't call that my news aggregator. The one I like the most is Feedly. Feedly. And now it's got an AI component to it.
Oh, yeah?
Where it will go because right now Feedly is about you say which news sources you want to see. So you subscribe to TechCrunch and Data Blog, whatever. And and then it will show you all of those, and then you can click off those and things. Where Feedly AI is, if it knows your preferences, it's going to go find those for you. It might even find a Twitter feed for you. And so it's a lot more of that personal assistant for news. You got to pay for it, but it's not that expensive, and it would be well worth it if you like to read news, but you like it very curated.
Yeah. Well, I mean, that leads to its own problems because you can get into some pretty severe groupthink if you're curating your news.
That's true.
Based off of specific topics. But I mean, that's just the world we live in, and it's our responsibility as individuals to not get wrapped up in that. But not everybody realizes that right now.
And I don't know if they're real or not real. They're just giving you the news. So that's one. The other one, and this is from our good friend Matt Wolf. I was watching one of his YouTube videos, and he's the one with was it Future Tools AI?
Yep.
Great, very basic website, but gets the job done. It's every possible tool you could ever imagine in the AI space, and you got to love his the way that he does his videos. I think, but it's great content. But he mentioned one called My Mind, so MYMIND, and you can dump anything that you want into it. You can be from your phone, from your computer. It could be a tweet. It could be a news article, and it does its best to try to put it into a catalog for you. So if you have 1,000 things that you've put into My Mind, then you can go and say, what articles or what do I have in there that's talks about Midjourney?
Okay.
And that was the example actually that Matt Wolf used in his video. And it shows the 7 or 8 things that are Midjourney. And so if he was wanting to do some research and he goes, oh, that's a cool article on Midjourney. That's a cool, well, he may never read them until he really needs it. Well, it does the great job of cataloging all of that. And it looked really cool because it can pull from anything.
Even YouTube?
I think so.
What about podcasts?
Well, now I haven't used it enough. I just, I was getting ready for this podcast and I saw that one. I'm like, ooh, I want to mention that one because that's basically that brain I want, where I want to store everything, but I don't like the Evernote problem, back in the day where you'd store everything in Evernote, but you had no way to get it out. It was so hard. I don't want that problem. I want something that's easy to be able to extract.
So this sounds like a tool that I'm going to be into because I do, I think of things from like a knowledge-based perspective.
Yes.
Like if I'm building a process for myself, like I consider that a knowledge base. So like when I'm growing and then drying and then making hot peppers, like I literally go in and I write out how to do it because I do it once a year and I'm going to forget like 8 steps between start to finish. But if I had the ability to store that in a thing called My Mind, like not the things that I create necessarily, but if I pull it off the internet, my recipes, like all this other type of stuff, and I'm just like, what's my recipe for chicken Alfredo? And it just tells me.
That's it.
Or like what do I do after I make sure that there's no holes in the peppers, and all of that type of stuff. And I feel like that's how I try to use OneNote. I try to use OneNote in a way that builds up my overall capacity because I don't have to hold things in my brain anymore. I just put it there, and when I can come back to it and touch it when I want to, and that My Mind thing feels like the same thing, but just AI powered because I have to manually find it in everything I have right now. And did I put something in 2 different places or not? And it's up to my own organization skills and revision to make it work. But if I could do all of that without the revision, that would make it even easier. Yeah,
and if I could be able to, like, you can generate your own mood boards, things like that. You can put your own notes in here. I'm looking at some of the things they put in. You can even like grab a quote from somewhere and have that imported in, and then it would tell you where that lives originally. You can OCR directly in here, and also
what's OCR?
OCR, optical character recognition. So it's when you take a regular piece of paper and extract the text from it.
Like what you're talking about with vision.
Yeah.
Where you take pictures of whiteboards and it just makes your notes for you.
That's right, which is really, really cool. You can track your to-dos I'm seeing in here, and also there was, there it is. Yes, YouTube, Twitter, all of that can be stored into there. And then at the top, it just says, search My Mind.
Okay.
And that's where you would type that.
So everybody go out there, get this My Mind application, and then put all of our stuff in it, all the data for all stuff.
That's right.
And then if you ever want to know when we talked about this, that, or the other thing.
That's a great, or all of your favorite podcasts, and so every time somebody has talked, that's a great idea.
Of course it is.
But I would start with just Data for All. Absolutely.
And AI for All.
And AI for All, for sure. So that when it comes to content,
I'm going to try that in my mind out.
Yeah. And I think the last thing I just want to talk about when it comes to content is we're all doing research. We all want to do things. You've been talking how you're using ChatGPT with Bing a lot lately.
Yeah,
and so you have to have, ChatGPT Plus, but in there, it says search with Bing.
Yeah.
And so why would you use that versus just the normal default?
So that's literally my search engine now.
Okay.
Like I don't use Google anymore. And the reason is because it can tell context. So this is a silly example, but it's true. So I met somebody recently that reminded me of a character in an anime that came out 20 plus years ago, and it's a character that's only in the first 2 episodes, but he's the antagonist. Antagonist is the bad guy, right?
I think so.
Okay, so he's the bad guy, and I was trying to Google like, who is the first bad guy? Who was the first bad guy in the couple episodes? And Google's just not getting it at all. I go to images, I go to the printouts or whatever. I go to GPT with the Bing thing, and I'm just like, what's the first bad guy that that's pretending to be? The same prompt I put into Google, pulled it right up.
Yeah,
it was instant. And so every single thing I've used as a search. Like instead of search in Google, search with Bing has been way better. Yeah,
and see, I did that with Bard a lot. Bard is the Google version of what you're doing, but I also don't want to use 15 different things. And so ChatGPT, for me would be better for that.
Yeah, Bard hallucinated too much for me with the internet stuff. Yeah, I've talked to several people, and they're just like, it's just spitting back stuff that's not true because it doesn't weigh the. It doesn't weigh the information it's given to you in the same kind of way. It seems like.
Yeah. And then if you were to go, like we've talked about perplexity.ai, that's a nice one because it'll give you information. Like if you gave it the same prompt, it would also give you the source. It would give you a little bit more context of specifically where it got it from, which I think is nice. And then I added this one in here because, again, I'm in the research world because I'm a professor. I think I'm still one. And there's one that was called Elicit, ELICIT. I think I spelled that correctly. And that's one that's specific to research. So you could have I think that one is going to be subscription based, but then when you're prompting it, it's going to go pull from all the research in all of those different journals and databases, because most of those journals are in 1 or 2 databases. There's JSTOR and LexisNexis. There's only a few areas, so it's pulling directly from those to be able to give you your answers.
This is a different subject altogether, but I'm curious how those companies are like, they like to get paid for research papers.
Oh yeah, they do.
And so I wonder how that's going to work, because like I've always like if I have a paper that I want and I don't want to pay for it, I go to the professor and they typically will provide it.
Yeah.
Just because that they're happy to, because they get credit, because they don't get paid for what's on those websites.
Right.
Which is ridiculous. But I wonder how this is going to shake out with like an AI that can reach into it.
Well, we're already there with the search side of it. So we know nobody goes and grabs a journal anymore. All journals are pretty much digital now within their libraries. The library pays for a subscription to that database. So Elicit would just have to be paying a lot, and other people would be paying Elicit if that would be the prompting engine for those. Or, the truth is, and I'm saying JSTOR or whichever, there's Elsevier, I think is another one. They're going to have this built in. Yeah. And if they don't already, they will. And but it's still the old school one where it's like this form, and you type anytime you see the word data or the phrase data science in the title or this author. And so they're like different categories, when in the future it should be, give me anything about data science that talks about this. And that right now is not there, but I think it's not far away from happening. So, boy, we're already, where are we at? We're at about an hour 13. So I'm going to say we've got so much we could cover.
Yeah.
How is that for productivity side of things? So, and if I was to go back and kind of, and again, the reason we're talking about this is people want to know how to enhance their lives.
Yeah.
And we believe that thinking of the productivity tools out there is a good start.
Yeah.
See what is currently within products you are currently using, and then start looking at the other products that are out there.
Yeah.
And determine, are you needing integration between products? Are you just needing the Chat GPTs of the world?
Yeah.
Are you needing none of them?
I think like going back to the beginner, intermediate, advanced, beginner is using the tools for the first time. Intermediate is having your tools that you use on a regular basis, like you're a GPT person or you Midjourney person, like you're familiar with a product and you're comfortable with using it. And then I think the advanced is where you should start thinking about. That's where the integrations come in.
Yeah.
That's where I'm connecting to tools and stuff like that. But don't feel like you need to jump all the way to the end. Like just play with it first, and then start to use it, in specific tasks, and then start to expand out to more complex compound tasks.
And that's a great way of thinking of it, because like I would say I'm between that intermediate and advanced.
Same.
Because I'm not really using Zapier or Make or any of those others really well, but I use Drafts and that little way. I use some of the other shortcuts through Apple, and I could be doing so much more. But some of it's just cute, right? Like sending you a happy birthday. Okay, that's great. Or I could just send a nice video message of me doing it on the actual day.
But then there's also ways that you can use it to keep a community going. And so like one of the things that I've been thinking about recently is using Zapier to post to one of the LinkedIn groups that I'm a part of, just to do like a Success Saturday, or share something on a particular day. But I would want to, I don't want to have to be the one to go in and like create it the day of. And so I just I want to set something up in an automated fashion, like that it posts and like today's share your story day.
Yeah.
Try to get the comments going and all that kind of stuff. But then I can just jump in and put a comment in, as opposed to being the person who does that and then puts the comment in and all that kind of stuff. And so it would just save me time, but it would allow me to
stay engaged.
Yeah, to keep people engaged.
So Taplio, Taplio, it's in under our How to Be Creative side, part of our outline. That's one that can automatically create those, and it can create comments for your LinkedIn page. So it's like it's your automated tool for LinkedIn.
Okay.
And that's one I've been looking at lately. I've used Buffer and HubSpot to queue manually once. So I'll create a bunch of posts, but I don't want them to all go out on the same day. So I want to schedule them. So Buffer has been really good at that. And of course, they're trying to add AI tools so that's it. But that Taplio one, that one's really cool.
I'll check that out.
And it can, again, it does it where it can really be your sound like it's really from you, as opposed to like when I see a bunch of emojis now. I know.
Yeah.
You're cheating.
I mean, I know because I did it.
Yeah, I know. Because that's how I know. Because for a while, our show notes or our notes for YouTube were a little bit too.
If you go back through our post history, you'll see exactly which ones were AI and exactly which ones weren't.
we went back to the human part on those and keeping it short, and succinct. Or did we? Well, remember, we want people to know we have soul.
Yeah. I've gone shorter. So that's what I realized. I was trying to do too much with each description. So I've gone shorter, and it's made it a lot easier. And sometimes I'll throw something into GPT to see if it'll reword it. But GPT's not good with 1 to 2 sentence descriptions.
That's right. It gets wordy with no soul.
Yeah, it does get wordy with no soul.
There you go. I like that. Chat GPT, it's wordy with no soul. That's its commercial, and I don't think they're going to pay us for that.
I don't think they will. But we talk enough positive stuff about GPT
I think
or OpenAI that, hey,
yeah,
you don't hear us talking about Anthropic all the time, do you?
But we will if you want to throw a couple of dollars our way.
Yeah.
So yeah. Well, they've got a couple of dollars now. They got a $2 billion investment from Google.
Was it 2?
No, it was 4 from Amazon.
Okay.
And 2 from Google.
Oh, so Google I didn't hear about the Google.
That was this past week.
Okay.
And I'll fact check me, but I think that was correct. And if I'm wrong, I'll put it in the show notes.
All right.
All right. How to be a human.
Yeah.
Let's talk about that, or let's talk about what we see is some of the bigger picture stuff for businesses, because, again, we're getting the question all the time about, Will I have value? Will I be needed? How many jobs will be out there in my profession? So if there's 10 people doing something right now, will there be one needed over in then what do those other 9 people do? What are you hearing in the whole big picture or future of business?
Well, so from an economic impact perspective, there's a lot of doomsday folks out there, that are saying, AI is going to take your job. Like this is going to be the worst. Like a lot of people do agree that the economic impact is going to be the most stressful part about AI, and I don't disagree with that. But I do want to challenge people to think more.
I don't agree with that, by the way.
You don't agree? There's going to be an economic.
No, that's the worst part.
Well, we can get to that.
Okay.
But, okay. So like, I do want to get to that. So right now, a lot of businesses are like, how can I cut people out?
Yes.
How can I introduce AI more and people less? And I feel like that's not necessarily the right way to go. Like obviously, if you're an enterprise, if you've got hundreds of thousands of employees or tens of thousands of employees, it's a different story. Like you will have a portion that you're not going to need anymore unless you grow. So from a mid-sized business perspective, I think that we're presented with an opportunity right now to grow. I mean, scale into a new size of business without having to include human capital in the same way that we did before. And so what do I mean by that? So if you bring on a $10 million client, in the past, you may have had to hire 15 people to cover that client.
Yeah.
Whereas in the future, you may only need 5. And so that's an increase in productivity for those 5 people because they're doing the work of 15.
Yes.
That in the way it used to be done. And so we're in the transition phase right now. And so instead of thinking about who can I let go, think about how can I get them into positions where they're doing more work, where these are the folks that are helping me grow without me having to spend the extra money. Yeah. And so that's where we're at right now because we're getting ready to press the gas, so to speak, on sales. And as we scale into what would have been 300 people, I want to scale to a point to where we're about 150, but we're doing the work that 300 people could do.
Yeah.
Because like we're services, we're people doing things for other people that are in. All of our stuff is on Rails. Like we've 99% of the calls that we get, like they're just, can I do this? Can I get this? How do I do that? And we can have a certain amount of automation or AI that could help us get a lot of that done.
Yeah, you're in that business where that just makes a lot of sense.
But there's people involved with everything. So like your development's a big. It's a big industry right now, and there's a lot of different ideas about how to accurately or how to manage a development workforce well. And I feel like we're in a position right now. It's the same thing. It's like instead of like cutting development and having AI do that, it's how do you grow the development and allow the developers to spend more time in mind space, if you will, coming up with better ideas that then we use AI to implement. And because the people, like you said before, they're not going to go away. But if they're working on the front and the back end, it's like, okay, so the developer sets up the architecture for the way the AI is going to program, and then the person is looking at it after the fact, and then making sure that it accurately applies. Like if you're working on a widget, making sure that widget works in the main production code and all that type of stuff. So the person can help with that, but then they're using, like it's AI is more like a pet. It's always with them, and then it does certain tasks for them.
Yeah.
And so I think
is it cute and adorable and licks you when you get home from work?
To each his own on that.
Yeah.
You can have a cyber robot, or you can have a fluffy little poodle, or whatever you want. But it's your own flavor, and I feel like that's how we're all like. For the most part, we're going to use AI in our own unique ways. But as a business, this is where it flips, because you've got to come up with standard processes for using AI in a world where it changes every day.
Yeah.
At this point, it's going to settle down in the next couple of years because there's going to be models that you can bring on site, and then those are your models that you change as quickly or as slowly as you want. But until we get there, it's the point of how can I make my people more productive? How can my people do more work for our customers? Like maybe you come up with new products. Maybe you come up with just new types of revenue streams that you hadn't really thought about before because you've got the time.
Yeah.
Like I feel like businesses right now, especially in the public sector, they're thinking about cuts. and they're going to look at a spreadsheet and say, I only need a third of these people. But what they're going to do is they're going to cut all the way down to that third, but they're going to stymie their ability to grow because they don't have the extra anymore. So if you whittle down to just what you need, you're never going to have the room to grow because those people are busy doing just what you need in the moment.
Yeah.
And so from an economics perspective, if you're a business leader out there, before you start letting folks go as you automate these things, think about how you can get them to do more or better work in the future with the tools that are being introduced and how that can grow your business.
Yeah. And it's just every time there's been innovation, you eliminate jobs or tasks, but you create sometimes twice as many jobs.
For sure.
And so you go back to the manufacturing revolution or, or back in the 1900s, they probably freaked out. They probably freaked out when it came to the automation side. And then when they really got good at that, how many jobs were gone. And that probably hit a head probably in the 1930s, right? And that's when the first real depression happened. But that was probably based on that automation and people didn't have jobs anymore. And then all of a sudden, everybody was working again, right? And then you had the same thing with the internet and the .com bust, boom, all of those. And all the jobs from the 80s, you think about that. How many of those still exist, right?
I mean,
other than in the retail and maybe services?
Retails, I mean, we're always going to need plumbers, electricians, and all of that type of stuff. But you hit on a really good point, and that's kind of where the economic piece comes in, is like we are going to have a period of time where people don't know what to do. Yeah. But there are organizations out there like, the NTC, the NSS, and all that kind of stuff that are working towards workforce retraining.
Yep.
Where, maybe you were a factory worker, or maybe you were a help desk agent.
Maybe you were a coder.
Or maybe you were a coder.
And now what's that next thing?
I don't know. It's open to interpretation at this point. But there are options to grow yourself into new positions that don't technically exist right now.
Yeah, and if I was a coder and I felt like I needed to pivot, I would learn data. Because if you know data, you know business. And a coder, a lot of times, and when I'm saying coder, I'm not talking about at a high level. I'm talking about the ones that are creating login pages, and that's kind of the thing that you do. You don't understand a business at that point, and so how are you going to be able to ask good questions? Because I believe everything in the future is going to be about asking good questions, compelling, productive conversations in the end. Yeah, and so we need data and production to either get the other stuff out of the way or help us with those type of aspects, asking questions, having good conversations.
Well, going back to the Baker analysis too, there's an empowerment to using AI with your workflows that allows you to do more with less. And so she as an individual is managing more work than she could have in the past without AI. Yeah. And so and that's just on a one person scale. Yep. And then the same thing applies to even the 10,000 person scale. It's like your people have the capability to do more. So what does that look like? Yeah.
Well, I think we're going to have 50 more conversations very similar to this. We never even got into like the creative side, like the art and how you would go writing and where to, so I think that's going to be one, right? We got to have one about the soul because we do believe that there's AI and then there's the human with the soul part. So can you grab somebody with a lyric or the first sentence of something you write? Right now, ChatGPT ain't doing it.
It's not. It's definitely not. It can come up with cute lyrics and stuff, but it's nothing that's going to move you. Like we've talked about it before, but if I find out that it's a machine after the fact, I lose interest. Yep. No matter what it says, because it's not true. And I like truth in my music specifically. Yeah. And, I'm going to fly to Las Vegas in December with my wife, and we're going to go see U2 at that new Sphere. And if you haven't heard that, it's that big, I've seen it. It's unbelievable. Well, did you see it as a pumpkin for Halloween? I did. That was cool. Pretty cool. Yeah. And I've watched a couple of the YouTube videos where people have been inside with their cameras, and it's like everybody has their phone up the entire time during the concert. You can see it on the inside too? Well, no, it's just one person's videoing it from the back, and that's what I'm watching on YouTube. And then I see everybody else is also videoing. So it's a sea of phones recording
you two in that sphere. Well, that's something that I would pay a lot of money to go and have that experience. If there were not humans on that stage, I wouldn't be going there.
No,
right?
no.
And so this human connection, this a thing for community, and it goes to, I actually teased this and we never said it. So I'll do this quick and then we'll make this future episode type stuff.
Okay.
But you mentioned the economic part. What I'm more worried about is the mental health part. You know, AI and this remote workforce, the disconnection between individuals, I'm seeing it more and more. Now, I am working a lot right now in mental health with youth and data, and I'm working on a lot of projects there.
Yeah.
So it's top of mind, but everything comes back to community. Those that are alone are those that struggle the most.
Yeah.
And AI or different things that I'm seeing are making people more isolated. That's what I worry about.
What about AI-assisted interest groups?
I'm interested to see. I don't see why that will not work, but it's not going to work in the beginning. There's a lot to it, and for like I use an app right now to create exercises every day to help me with my hip, which I've always had. I've had 2 hip surgeries for repairs, so I'm always working on that. If I put a comment in, I always get a comment back, and it sounds very chat body.
Oh, does it?
But I also went and saw somebody speak at a local company, Apigian, and they came to our data science meetup, and they talked about how they're using AI to provide recommendations on what to say to the human, but not to be automated. Like it doesn't, so it'll give you a sentence, but then it's the expert or the actual person on the other end, like working for your company kind of thing. They still have the ability to change it. So sometimes I'll put like, I went for a run yesterday and I feel pretty good today. And then I get back the comment, Charlie, it's great that you went for a run yesterday and you feel good. And then the next part usually sounds like a human. So that doesn't bother me. It makes me feel good.
Like you're being seen?
It's feedback. Feedback when you have injuries is good, right? You want to know that that's a good thing. Or if I start saying, hey, I'm starting to get a weird twinge here, I think there will be an alert that'll go to the PT and say, okay. And so like I had an actual face-to-face with a physical therapist, and she had all the notes. She had every one of my comments. Yeah.
Okay.
All from the app. And she knows where I am in the app, what I've been doing. She talked about, if you want to get back to running the way you were, I think we bump it up a little bit, but I see that you have been consistent. And so all of that data, there's the impersonal side, but then like you've said before, at some point I need the human.
Yeah.
Like if all I need to know is how to fix the brightness on my phone, give me the chat bot all day, right? Yeah. But if I want to decide on which of the phones to buy and I'm not getting it through, whatever, where I feel like I need a human, then I want the human. If I have a temperature and I know I don't really know what I should do that day, give me the list from a chatbot, I'm fine. But a diagnosis that's chronic, I want a human.
Yeah. So you've sparked a lot of like just new thoughts. And so I'm thinking like, is there a way to determine through using AI whether you're a proper introvert or if you're extroverted? Because some of the mental health stuff is not understanding what you need as an individual from a interpersonal perspective.
Yeah.
Because I used to think my entire life that I was introverted, but I could just handle being around people. But the pandemic taught me the actual opposite. Like 100%. I need people.
I need people too. Yeah. That to me always was evident during the holidays because that's when everybody in academia went home and it was just me at the office and I would be grumpy. And so, I think that sparks a cliffhanger that we'll leave for another time. What do you think?
Dun, dun, dun.
Love it. Oh, I don't know which button to push. Darn it.
It's not in there.
Oh, we could change our voice and maybe that'd make it really good. No, we won't do that either. I don't like the voice things. But Charlie, anything else to add for this one?
No, it's this is more of a meta type conversation.
Yes.
then like go in here and apply these things. But I feel like those are the types of conversations that we need to have, like this one and the ethics and all of that other type of stuff, because those are the conversations that kind of frame how we proceed in the future.
Yeah, I think this is the episode that sparks conversations more than ends it, right?
Yeah. So on
like
that note, if anybody's out there and you've got a cool thing you do with AI, leave it in the comments of the podcast, because we want to know. We want to know how people are approaching it. Like, so when my buddy's telling me the story of the baker who's making it work with AI, I love that.
Yeah. And I'll even give you another one. By the time this episode comes out, we will have a new website.
Yeah.
Charlie is holding me to that date, and I'm almost done with it. So, and that'll be a place that it'll just be dataforall.io. That's data, the number 4, all.io. And you can leave us a comment there as well. You can watch all of our YouTube videos, and you, of course, will be able to see every one of our podcasts directly from there. And that's just for Data for All. We now have, you are now doing the AI for All podcast as well. We'd love for you to see that one. And of course, FemLogic AI, we always like to plug Shauna. We like to think of us now as a group of 3 trying to do this great work. And I think all of us together are hopefully helping people understand this crazy AI world. But to get started, go to dataforall.io, and then you can watch us, listen to us, or leave us a comment.
Yeah, we'd appreciate it.
Okay. And I'll have to do my last one. Charlie, anything else? He says, so I did it only twice today. So for the Data for All podcast, please subscribe to us on your favorite podcast player. But go to our website, dataforall.io. And for the Data for All podcast, I'm Charlie Apigian.
And I'm Charlie Yielding.
And until next time.